Hello, everyone. Good morning. My name is Kenia Miranda Verdugo, and I am the Smart Justice Program Manager with the Michelson 20 Million Minds Foundation. Thank you for joining us today to continue the conversation on pathways from prison to college in action. We will be sharing a link to download the California's Best Practices Pathways from Prison to College guide in the chat. This In Action webinar series highlights programs and organizations across the state that are implementing the strategies found in the guide. Before we learn from the Lifted team, and as we give folks a few minutes to hop on Zoom, I would like to share a bit of background on our foundation and what we have in store for you today. Founded by Dr. Gary K. Michelson and Alia Michelson, the Michelson 20mm Foundation is a private, nonprofit foundation organization that seeks to accelerate progress towards a more just world through grant-making, programs, and impact investing. 5 years ago, we launched our Smart Justice Initiative to leverage higher education as a catalytic force for transforming the lives of justice-involved individuals while also reforming the justice system itself. We work to transform the communities impacted by our country's punitive legal system to forge brighter, more prosperous futures via education. Today, you will hear from members of the Leveraging Inspiring Futures Through Educational Degrees, or LIFTED program. The panelists have experience with kickstarting in-prison bachelor degree pathway programs. In fact, the team that will join us offers the first UC bachelor degree granting program for currently incarcerated individuals. They will share the process, obstacles, goals, and vision for the LIFTED program. In addition, the panel will share the importance of in-prison education and how the impact goes beyond just granting degrees. As a note, before we get started, I would like to remind everyone that you will be able to ask questions via the Zoom Q&A function throughout the webinar. And feel free to utilize the chat function to connect with one another. With that said, it is my pleasure to now introduce our exceptional panelists. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Karamet Reeder, who is a professor in the Department of Criminology, Law, and Society at the University of California, Irvine. Dr. Reeder is also the director of the UC Irvine LIFTED program. Joining her today is Jennifer Gomez, program officer for UCI LIFTED and chair of the San Diego Reentry Roundtable Policy Committee. Ms. Gomez is a formerly incarcerated student at the University of California, Irvine, where she is working on her master's in criminology, law, and society. Her purpose in life is to use her lived experience with addiction, behavioral health, and the criminal legal system to advocate for others affected by systemic barriers and mass incarceration. Thank you for being here, Jennifer. Please welcome Ryan Flacco Rising, who is the founder of the West Coast Credible Messengers program, as well as a PhD student in criminology, law, and society at UC Irvine. Ryan Flacco Rising's lived experience as a formerly incarcerated gang-involved youth and adult deeply informs the work he does around assisting formerly incarcerated students and gang-involved individuals with their transition into the UC system. Flacco Rising's work is a testament to the power of formerly incarcerated students. It is a pleasure to have you here with us today, Ryan. We are also excited to have one of our 2023 Spark grantees with us today from the University of California Riverside LIFTED team. Dr. Farah Godrej is a professor of political science at UC Riverside, where she's also the co-founding director of UC Riverside LIFTED. UC Riverside will soon join the 1% of U.S. colleges and universities offering a Bachelor of Arts program within the confines of a prison as they welcome 25 students this fall. Thank you for joining us today, Dr. Godrej. We will now begin our panel discussion. Dr. Karamet, you could take it away.
Wonderful. It's such a pleasure to be here today with such a wonderful and growing group of people in California involved in this work. I often say that my dream is that we have formerly incarcerated students who've earned their degrees inside or after release who lead these programs. And I think we're starting to see that in these panels now. And so I just want to start with a moment of how wonderful it is to be on a panel with this team of people doing this work in the state and to see the growing team and the growing really important voices in that team. I think it's already a marker of the kinds of early successes we've had. So I'm going to talk just a little bit about like the history of UCI LIFTED and how we came about, and then pass it on to Farah to talk a little about the second lifted project in the UC system that she's leading. So just as a little background about higher education in the state of California, for those of you, I imagine there's some on this call who are very familiar, but for those of you who are less familiar, California has really been a national leader in trying to bring higher education into the prisons, and particularly public higher education. So I think, just as we need public and private universities and a diversity of options outside of prison, I think it's also really important to think about those resources in prison. And until California got into this space, most of the very few programs offering any kind of higher education in prison were private programs that were privately funded. But in 2014, the California legislature funded community colleges to start offering face-to-face courses in the California state prisons. And that was one of the first statewide initiatives to really invest in public higher education in the prison system. And that's coming from a place of understanding that our prisons in California are astronomically expensive and not particularly successful. So we have recidivism rates in the state approaching 40% within 3 years. And it costs $100,000 per person per year on average to keep someone incarcerated in a prison in California. That is as much as it costs to send 6, 7, 8 students to community college for a year. So I think there was a sense in the state that we could shift our investments and have better outcomes. And we know that the more college people attend in prison, the lower their recidivism rates. So by the time people earn a bachelor's degree in prison, their recidivism rate usually approaches 0. So this was an investment that was based on this understanding that higher education was maybe a path forward, an alternative to mass incarceration in this state. And it was really exciting. And within a few years, every one of the state's 34 prisons had face-to-face community college programs. I think just a few had some correspondence or mail programs, but almost all of them were face-to-face. Of course, the pandemic put a little wrinkle in that, but those programs are almost entirely back functioning face-to-face. And that means that there are now thousands of students in this state with associate's degrees clamoring for bachelor's degrees in prison. And we are slowly expanding opportunities for those students. So Cal State LA started the first bachelor's degree in prison not long after the community colleges started their work, and they started that in Lancaster. And for a while, that was the only bachelor's degree on offer in the state. And there are now a number of Cal State programs, but about 5 years ago, UC Irvine said, we really think the UCs should be in this space too, in part because California has this truly inspirational vision for higher education that anyone from anywhere should ultimately be able to earn a degree from a top university in the state. And the system is structured so that you can enter a local community college that has a very low bar to entry, work your way into a Cal State or a UC for a bachelor's degree, and then go to a UC for graduate school. So the UCs are the research institutions that often have more graduate programs, PhDs, professional programs like business and law and medicine. So the idea is that everyone has access to this entire system in the state. And early on in the higher education work in the state, I think there was a sense of, oh, it'll just be the community colleges and the Cal States as the teaching institutions, as the ones focused on undergraduate degrees. But those of us in the UCs felt really strongly that no, just as we were expanding opportunities, diversifying student populations, we really wanted incarcerated students to have this opportunity to reach the UCs, just as they would if they weren't in prison. The UCs banned the box a number of years ago, meaning we don't ask about criminal history when students apply. So there's no reason to exclude eligible students who complete community college degrees. Across California, if you complete an associate's degree with a certain GPA and certain courses, you're automatically eligible for UC admission. And so in some sense, incarcerated students were being arbitrarily excluded from this opportunity that everyone in California is supposed to have through the vision of higher education. So that's how the UCs entered this space. We said, there's really exciting work happening. We're a public institution. We see ourselves as partners with the community colleges and the UC system, and we want to be part of this initiative also. And UC Irvine has the only criminology department in the UC system. So I think we kind of made sense. We had a big cohort of people who were really excited about this. We're also a diversity serving institution. We had one of the first programs to serve former foster youth. So as faculty at UC Irvine started talking about joining this higher education space in the state, I think there was a lot of excitement across the campus that it fit with our mission. So we launched we admitted our first cohort, and Jen can chime in and correct me, time is starting to blur. But we admitted our first cohort 3 years ago, and we have 23 students on track to graduate this June. So we worked with them 3 years ago to submit their applications. They were admitted in March of 21, right, Jen? And now they're as junior level transfer students, and now they're finishing their bachelor's degrees. So we have a second cohort on track to graduate in 2025, and we worked with a group of almost 40 students to apply to join our third cohort. So we are well underway, and our initial funding came partly from Michelson, partly from local philanthropists, partly from an investment from our local university campus. But our vision has always been that this needs to be a statewide initiative. And the idea is that we hope to see what we call triangles across the whole state. So we see ourselves working in partnership with UC Irvine, Southwestern Community College, which is our community college feeder that's on site in the prison we work at. And the third point of the triangle is Richard J. Donovan Correctional Facility, where we're serving incarcerated students. So we see this triangle of, you need a state prison facility that's welcoming the program. You need an initial community college partner. Of course, the dream is that students will be able to transfer and choose their program across the state, but having an initial community college partner who's really committed to helping generate your first pathway of students, prepare them for UC admission, offer the right courses, work through the complexities of making sure they're all ready for graduation, which truly is a team effort between the community colleges and the UCs, as we're learning with our first cohort. So our vision is that there will be triangles like the one we've built in San Diego all across the state. And we went to the legislature with that vision 2 years ago. And importantly, in California, the legislature has funded many different prongs of the incarcerated student support networks in the state. So I told you the legislature funded the community colleges to offer courses in prison. The legislature also funded the community colleges to support students coming out of prison through the Rising Scholars Program. The legislature has long funded Project Rebound, which supports formerly incarcerated students in the Cal States. The legislature is supporting the Cal States offering these programs in prison face-to-face. And the fifth of 6 prongs, the legislature has funded Underground Scholars, which supports formerly incarcerated students on the UC campus. And so we see permanent funding of UC in prison offerings as kind of the final prong of this legislative initiative. And 2 years ago, the legislature gave us pilot funding to say, okay, let's start, let's try, let's see if you can do it. And our hope is that that will become permanent over the next few years. But some of that pilot funding was to support replication projects at other UCs. And UC Riverside, which is such a thrill to have them on the call today, was the first UC that was able to develop this triangle. And that's really the key. They found a community college partner, a prison with available space and excitement about having this bachelor's program, and are working to have their first cohort of students apply, and we're all waiting for our spring admissions decisions any day now. So I could talk lots more about the details of the program, and often great questions come out in the Q&A about that, but I want to give Farah a chance to talk a little about what UC Riverside is doing and this exciting idea that we finally have a second triangle, what we hope will be the second of many. So I will turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, Kermit. Everyone hears me okay? Great, thank you. So it's really exciting to be here. Thanks so much to the Michelson Foundation for all the work that has brought us to this point, and the generous funding that is going to make possible the work that we hope to do. And thank you, of course, to our partners at UC Irvine, all of whom have really been supporters, cheerleaders, and advocates for us to get to this point. So Kermit has really set up very well, I think, the preface and the kind of context for the work that we're doing. And so in describing, how we, UCR, came into this work, I would just say that it's really all thanks to Kermit reaching out to me, right? So I remember having a conversation with Kermit now 3 years ago in the summer of 2021, when she described exactly what she's just described to you and said, would UCR be interested in replicating? And there are a number of reasons I think that UCR was considered kind of a logical, right, campus to take on this work. As Kermit mentioned, we are also a minority serving institution. I think still the official designation is Hispanic serving institution, and so on, right? So, and we're also a campus that has a very large number of system impacted, formerly incarcerated students, as well as a large number of former foster youth. And so for all of those reasons, right, UCR, and of course, there are a number of us on campus doing work inside prisons already, thinking about prisons from a scholarly angle, but also doing, right, research, activism, and other forms of advocacy work inside prisons. So all of this, I think, came together, right, as a perfect storm for UCR to be, as Kermit said, right, the kind of logical partner to develop the kind of triangle that she has just described. So the work has been relentlessly ongoing since about mid-2021. And I'm pleased to say that we now have 36 applicants who have applied from California Rehabilitation Center, NORCO, which is the prison facility that we are working with. And as Kermit said, any day now, we're waiting on the admissions office on our campus to give us admissions decisions on that cohort. And if all goes well, we will matriculate our first cohort this fall in 2024. So cross your fingers for us, everyone. So a little background here on how we came to, right, this point. So as Kermit said, right, developing that triangular relationship is really the key. And that actually is, it doesn't happen overnight, as you can imagine. One doesn't develop rapport and approval and the kind of relationships you need with a prison overnight. That takes time to establish. And similarly so with establishing a partnership with a community college, right? All of these long-term relationships and networks take time to establish. And that was the first leg of the work. And, it's now a little bit sort of hilarious to look back and think on how little we knew, right? And our motto even today is like, we don't even know what we don't know, right? And that's kind of been our modus operandi now for almost 3 years, which is we just leapt in and we said, okay, we'll do the work. And then, of course, we discovered very quickly what we didn't even know in order to do the work, much less how to find out what we didn't know. But somehow, right, despite our sort of naive enthusiasm, we seem to have, stumbled our way through it. And here we are, right, on the cusp of, I hope, something really groundbreaking. So it took a long time to establish those relationships. And I'm happy to say those have all turned out to be really productive, generative relationships that I think are going to serve us really well in the long term. We're very fortunate, as Kermit says, to have a prison partner that's welcoming of the program. And I'm sure we'll talk about this, later as we get into the Q&A. Perhaps one of the big challenges is space. Right? It's not just about finding a prison that supports the program. Wardens can be supportive, but it's like, where's the space to hold classes, right? So those are some of the very nitty gritty minutia things that we didn't even know to worry about, right? And now we know to worry about them. So I'm not sure which is better, not knowing or knowing to worry. But anyway, so we have to find a prison that's not just friendly, that has logistically, right? That everything is logistically possible, space, classrooms, right? So many other things, as those of us who do prison work know, the minutia and the kind of day-to-day logistics of how things work in prison, from small things like, are students able to be escorted, or do they have to be escorted from their housing units to the units where the classrooms are held, right? Small minor details like that really all add up to ensure that this prison ends up being, right, the one that is the correct and the appropriate partner. The other thing is you want the prison to be, I think, within striking distance of your campus, right? Because you have faculty who are going to be commuting to the prison and you don't want them, if at all possible, right? Of course, we're all committed and we'll do what we have to do. But when you add in long drives, right, that kind of raises the bar. So these are all sort of things that we, didn't even realize we had to think through. And we just feel very fortunate that it's worked out, that we found a prison within striking distance of campus, and we found a community college partner. So our community college partner is Norco College, which has been operating and offering the equivalent of 2-year degrees inside Norco CRC being California Rehabilitation Center, I think for many years now. And last I heard, they have something like 500 students enrolled in Norco College. Not all of those students are enrolled in degree pathways, but nonetheless, right, they're serving a large population of students at Norco CRC. So all of this just converged, right, to make this really perfect storm of partnerships. And as Kermit said, I love the triangle analogy. So, fast forward, right, 2 years to when we've kind of establish the relationships, and then we have to go back to our campus and say, okay, we've put all the pieces in place, and then begins the hard work of building, right, support and resources and infrastructure on campus. And that's a whole other story, and perhaps we can, wait to talk about that until some of the Q&A later. But, I'll just say for now, very briefly, that was actually, to my mind, as challenging, if not more challenging, than the process of building the networks and the relationships in the triangle that Kermit mentioned. And there are many reasons for those challenges. We can talk about those later, but we've come to this point because of the incredible dedication and 100% uncompensated labor of the core faculty team and the staff who are supporting us on our campus. It's really important for me to say this because people on our campus are working really tirelessly with very few resources, right, to support a program that we hope and believe is going to be completely groundbreaking and changing the face of education in this state. So I'm just in awe of the team, that we're working with and how much we have pulled off with very, very few resources. But here we are, right? We're on the cusp, I think, of something really big. Every time we go in to see our students in prison, they say, when are we going to hear? When are we going to hear? And we say, believe me, we're as eager as you are. We're all awaiting word eagerly, So enthusiasm is very high at CRC Norco. When we first did an info session on our program, I think we had something like 100 students coming to that information session to express interest in a bachelor's degree. And the only reason that it's gotten whittled down to 36 is, admissions eligibility requirements and a number of other graduation and breadth requirements and so on that we can talk about. Again, the ins and outs of which even we had no idea about until quite recently. So, but that means that there's a very enthusiastic pool for future cohorts. Right. So like Kermit has mentioned, this is, we believe and hope, going to be an ongoing sustainable program, assuming we can find the funding to do so. And our goal is very much like the goal of UCI LIFTED, which is to admit a new cohort every fall and to graduate a cohort every year. So I think I'll leave it at that for now, because I'm sure people have specific questions, but I think I'm now supposed to turn it over to either Jen or Ryan to talk about your roles in supporting UCI LIFTED in your capacity as staff and program assistants. So thank you so much, and I'll turn it over to one or both of you now.
Can I add one thing just to clarify, as Brian and I are talking so much about the importance of funding and giving you that background, because we're here with one of our core funding supporters. I think one thing that I didn't say that's really important to understand is that the tuition for these students is supported by existing infrastructure. So when we started the program, the tuition was supported by UC Blue and Gold, which is a program that's more robust than federal Pell funding. So it supports any student whose family income is less than $80,000 per year. And it's explicitly made to support non-traditional students who maybe wouldn't be eligible for more restrictive federal funding. So it historically has supported dreamers and folks who again, wouldn't qualify for federal funding. And that was kind of the foundation of these lifted programs. Of course, Pell has now been reinstated for incarcerated students. And so UC Irvine has applied to be one of the first Pell eligible sites. And UC Riverside will apply soon. So we will use a mix of Pell and Blue and Gold. But I think it's really important to note that in the UC system, these students have a kind of a backstop of guaranteed funding to cover their tuition, because that's often one of the biggest hurdles for these programs. So when we talk about needing support, we're talking about needing support for people like Jen and Flacco. So I wanted to raise this before you heard from them. So Jen is our full-time program staff person who really makes the program tick, who's on the ground at the facility. And so when we talk about funding, it's that infrastructure to support a program and to support the students' needs and meet them where they are, but their tuition is covered, and that's huge. So I just wanted to kind of give that framing. And now I will let the stars of the show talk, because they're really, as I said, they're the ones that I think are really making this tick, and it's so exciting to see the kind of collaborations that these programs are building.
Thank you, Karamet. I just wanted to touch on, I don't think we had a really structured conversation going on, but there was one thing I wanted to touch on that will lead into me introducing Ryan. And that is that I just really appreciate the UC's incorporating the voices of justice impacted people into setting up these programs and allowing us to participate in it. When I joined the Lifted program, it was about 3 years ago. And to be honest, I had the choice of either working for Southwestern College, which I also attended, or UC Irvine, and I graduated from a UC. And so I was like playing tug of war. I really didn't know which program I wanted to go to. But what really interested me about Lifted was that it was just starting. And all of the faculty and administrators told me that I would have a voice in the creation of this program. And I just really appreciated that. And that was, really intriguing and exciting for me. And since I've started, I have felt like my voice has been included in all the conversations. And with that, what I wanted to share with you all today, something that I'm really excited about, is not only that we will be graduating our first class this year, and that we have been really successful in offering really, top-notch classes our students really enjoy, electives they enjoy. I want to share this. This quarter, our students are doing a paper airplane simulation for an engineering course that they're taking, and it just sounds so exciting. So being able to offer these classes is really exciting, but what I'm really excited about is the expansion of our program to be able to bring different programs like the Writing Center into the prison. We offer the Writing Center comes in face-to-face at least 5 weeks out of the 10 weeks that we're there, to work with students on papers, developing their writing skills. We have had grad students come in and help students with their English writing skills, because we've shown that, or seen that is one of the gaps that we have with our students entering into the UC system is their writing skills. So we've had that. We also have a formerly incarcerated system impacted counselor who comes in frequently. She does workshops on stress management, the quarter system, imposter syndrome, all these topics that our students have never heard of, and I think are just really great for them to learn that they're not alone, that students on campus face the exact same things. So we have that. And what I've been really excited about this past couple quarters, starting over the summer, actually, Michelson gave us a grant, and we've used it to start a community project, which is being designed and run by our students, just guided by myself and 2 system impacted students who we were able to get cleared to go into the prison to work as peer mentors. And we'll be actually holding a 5K for addiction and at-risk youth in April. So I'm really excited for that. And in addition to that, we have PhD students who are now coming in. Ryan is the first of our PhD students to come in, and he has offered this. I'll let him talk about his workshop, but our first career readiness workshop, which entails graduate school prep stuff and, writing a CV and all these really great extracurricular resources that you need to be successful after graduation, which is what we're really trying to do. So I just wanted to share that with you and how excited I am that these programs are growing. We're not just offering classes, which I do see a lot of programs just offer classes. We're really trying to bring the campus to our students and give them all the opportunities that they deserve. So really excited to share that. And I'll pass it on to Ryan, who I'm really excited to say has been a great addition to our team. And I look forward to what he's going to do next quarter as well. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone. Yeah, this is amazing. So it's the circle of life that's really it gets me emotional, because I actually started my prison term at Donovan. I went through the reception yard in 2008. And so it was a very turbulent time in my life. And that reception yard was, there was a lot of violence. There was a lot of things that I experienced while I was there. So, to go through prison and not know what's going to happen after you get out was something, to reflect back on, as now I'm in my PhD here at UC Irvine in Criminology, Law, and Society. And I'm now teaching workshops in the same prison where I started in 2008. And so I'm the first formerly incarcerated graduate student who actually was in this prison, going back in now and teaching workshops and graduate preparation and career readiness workshops. And so I got to create the whole curriculum for this workshop. So I got to use my own personal statement of purpose, and my own CV and everything that I created to get to where I'm at today, to go in and empower these incarcerated scholars in the Lifted program and uplift their minds on this process of going from a bachelor's degree to graduate school on into a career afterwards. And so it was awesome. And I'm happy to say that I found my dream career. I want to teach in prison. I want to be a professor in prison, teaching sociology and criminology to lifted scholars who are in their bachelor's degrees and in their undergrad. These students are so engaged. I see the light turn on in their eyes as I speak to them. Which, you know, it goes back to what Jen was saying, that it's just important to have credible messengers with that lived experience, showcasing that they have gone on and continued to become successful in this journey in academia. And so that's what we've been up to in there. And so I taught them how to create a CV. I gave them a CV template. All these guys are in there creating their CV now. And they're like showing up, I'm working on my CV, check it out. Like, and we're able to go through it. Now they're doing their personal statement and their statement of purpose. And the last workshop that I did, I got to go through their writing sample, and we got to actually do a writing exercise. And I taught them how to do an autoethnographic field note. So where they sat there and they took in all the surroundings, and they sat there and they unpacked their senses, the smells, the sounds, and I taught them that, hey, you all are researchers now. You all are now researchers. So you all have the power to research what you're experiencing, what you're seeing. And so every day you're in your life now is a research project. So, you know, so I'm teaching them that autoethnographic research where they can use their experience and their understanding of theory and produce knowledge for all of us. And so they were so empowered, and what the field notes that they created were amazing, because the next thing you know, we started to connect the common themes, and we started to really push out these themes that we were seeing in everyone's field note. But we also understood that nobody sees life the same. We all perceive everything in our surroundings different. And so that was really powerful. And then I got to give them their first certificate of career readiness and graduate preparation. And so they got a certification for their their file, their C file, for parole board. And that to me was that was amazing. I left. It was a very emotional time and a very emotional day, because I left like, wow, like I was floored. Like I got to go run these workshops. And then so now I have a whole curriculum, and I'm hoping that I get to go in and do this with UCR Lifted now at CRC, and I get to go in and work with the next first cohort of individuals that are receiving this bachelor's degree and that are looking to apply to graduate school and looking to carry on. So I see the power in everything. I see the triangle, and I see what's evolving here, and I'm very, very grateful and very honored to be a part of it as a formerly incarcerated scholar, researcher, and a credible messenger. And so I look to one day in the future be in there teaching classes. And so that's my dream now, and that's my goal, and I will achieve it. I will achieve it, and I will be working for these lifted programs as a formerly incarcerated professor, teaching convict criminology, sociology, from the lens of a formerly incarcerated professor. And I think that would just, you know, put the cherry on top to all this. Right on. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate everyone coming through and checking out this workshop today.
Right. I hope you'll be running these lifted programs at some
Yeah,
point
me
in the
too.
future, to be
Yeah, like
clear.
That's what I was gonna say. I was like, dude, you're next, my friend. You're gonna be running the show soon.
let's
Yeah.
go. I'm ready. I'm dedicated to this mission, and I know the power of education firsthand, and so I'm ready to stand up and definitely lead this program in any way possible. So thank you, everyone.
That was very inspirational and very emotional, Ryan. Thank you so much for sharing. I know you were talking about you love to be a part of this, but I think you are like you are the UCI like lifted, you are lifted, and I think I am not the only one who is also feeling aside from you motivating your students and going in and hyping them up and making them feel like they have a lot to still do in the world. I feel like you're also leaving us with that as well, so I just wanted to say a personal thank you. Definitely a great way to start my morning. And I am definitely going to be playing this recording back just to hear you talk again. But we can also kick off our Q&A now. We will begin with the audience Q&A, and we can please use the Zoom Q&A function where everyone can ask their questions. Additionally, we will be dropping a survey in the chat for everyone to complete so we can gather some feedback on this webinar. Let's start with the first question on the Q&A from Raul Armenta. He asked, how are classes determined and what are the hurdles to have classes approved?
Maybe since I think we've done the most work to do this. I every time I sneak a peek at my inbox, I have a lot of emails about this. So we've been really fortunate at UC Irvine. What we do for classes is we just put out a call to campus faculty and lecturers, and we have been able to have a few graduate students teach, as you see with Ryan, but we're hoping to incorporate more in the summers. But we put out a call to the campus community and we say, there's this opportunity to teach in this program. And please fill out this form if you're interested. And we have had more than enough interest on campus. So I always say this because people are often like, oh, can you get, for us, it's about a 90-mile drive, so close to 2 hours to the prison. And people often say, are faculty really willing to do that? And the answer is absolutely. We have more faculty asking to teach than we can currently accommodate. Everyone who is taught in the program, aside from one person who had a baby, has come back the next year to teach again because they loved it so much. So we really, I think it's important to understand that this is a space that faculty have loved and really enjoyed being in, and the demand to teach in this space is growing, which I think is really exciting. So when we choose classes, we are trying even within that, right? There's all kinds of constraints, right? We're asking faculty to teach as part of their regular teaching load. So they teach this class in prison and it counts as one of the classes they would usually teach. And it's a course for their department, and these count as like 25 or 30 students that are enrolled in their department. That's a little smaller than a lot of classes often are on the UC campuses, so it can be a little bit of an ask for the department. But what we try to do for our students is just create the widest array of opportunities possible. So there's very little choice in the classes, in part because of space constraints at the prison. So usually, maybe students will be able to choose one class a quarter, but we're trying to meet their requirements to graduate from sociology and give them electives that expose them to as many possible departments across campus. So that's kind of what goes into the decision for us. And Jen is really wonderful talking with the students to try to get some input from them about what they're more and less excited about. And we do a lot of training with the faculty to help them develop courses that are responsive to the challenges of the environment, but also I think addressing things that students are interested in, right? So often sometimes faculty say, I want to teach a class that the students will be really excited about, and we can have an iterative conversation about what that might look like. But just to give you a sense, beyond the sociology classes, including a major research seminar this quarter for our graduating seniors, we've been able to offer a really amazing range of things. We have an engineering professor offering an engineering design class this quarter, and the students are designing paper airplanes. We've had business professor offer an institutions class where the students looked at some of the programs in the prison and how they might run more efficiently, like some of the business projects. So just a really amazing range of things, creative writing. that we've been able to bring in because of the investment of our university and our faculty. So I hope that's a little responsive. I don't know if others have more to add.
I would just add that to also gain support from departmental buy-in, Lifted has partnered with the English department on our campus. So we currently, it took a year, but we are currently offering a minor in English for our students as well, and they can opt into that. So a huge portion of our classes have been and will continue to be English classes, but a wide range. Really exciting classes. Like one of their classes, they got to read Frankenstein. They were really excited about that. I think the title of the course is Weird Fictions, which is funny, and I like it. And like Karamet was saying, and then we kind of fill in all the empty spaces of the sociology major courses with exciting electives. But we do have the English department, and this is like way ahead, but we are hoping to partner with another department in a year or so as we hope to expand at RJD to a different minor. So that's really exciting as well, giving students more choice. Yes.
Did you want me to talk a little bit about the equivalent issue at UCR? Or Ryan, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. If you have anything to add, please go ahead. You sure? Okay. So, Karamet has described a specific process at UCI, and one of the things folks may or may not know is that every UC campus functions very differently. The UC system is a system, but very often we find that the details of how things work on different campuses individually can vary greatly. So in our case, we are offering, and I saw a question in the chat about this, so I think it's probably good for me to talk about what's the major we're offering. So we're offering a major in education, society, and human development. And this is actually the first ever education BA degree in the nation. So, we're very excited about this. So why and how does all of this end up happening, right? Well, one of the things we discovered in our early attempts to get this program started is that you really need a major and a school or college on your campus that's willing to house the program. And in our case, it ended up being the dean of the School of Education who ended up being our biggest champion and supporter and wanting to house the program in the School of Education. So that was a huge moment for us. And I'll just say it was not easy to find that kind of upper level administrative support to house the program. So once you have that support, then you have to think about building a major, right? So the question of courses actually follows from all of that, right? Okay, so then we look at the education major, and it turns out that the education major, thankfully for us, is very forgiving. It has very few requirements, and those few requirements are to be fulfilled within the education department. So about half our courses for this program will be taught by faculty within the School of Education, and the other half of the courses can come from anywhere on campus, the electives. They can come from any discipline. So we're very fortunate in that we have a kind of structure where we're offering a major, and we have the faculty to support offering the courses for that major. And then we have a lot of flexibility, right, to offer courses across campus from whichever other faculty want to step in and teach courses. So that's a hugely sort of forgiving part of this process. So then how do we choose which faculty, right, end up teaching which courses? As Karamet mentioned, we have a very similar process. We just kind of, right, throw open a call. And we invite faculty to let us know if they're interested. And I'm happy to say that very much like UC Irvine, we have many faculty who are interested in teaching. I think we've got our curriculum lined up for 24-25. And now we are on to even planning 25-26, because we have, as Karamet said, more faculty than we can accommodate in year one. Now, we haven't launched yet, so we don't know what the specific challenges will be in terms of things like, maybe Karamet and Jen, you guys can talk more about this, like how those courses are surveilled or, right, approved by the prison system. That's another challenge I'm sure we'll face. But in the meantime, we're fortunate that, as Karamet said, faculty can just offer the very same courses that they would offer on campus. So we have no new major, no new curriculum, no new courses that require approval. And this is huge, because in the UC system, getting new majors and new courses approved is a massive bureaucratic undertaking. So that's another huge relief that we don't have to deal with that. So faculty are being emphatically told, you are going to teach the very same course you would teach on campus, just at a different site, right, to a different student population that happens to live somewhere else. So that's huge. And the other thing I would just say about, curriculum and courses is, I think I saw a question in the chat about this actually, is that we are using the kind of IGETC model just because it's much easier for us to get students to graduation in terms of graduation requirements and breadth requirements if they come in with IGETC. So we're making that a kind of de facto requirement for admission, not because it's an admissions requirement, but just in terms of our program's ability to get everyone to graduation. Even though, right, we have all this flexibility in terms of what courses we can offer, we still need to complete graduation and breadth requirements. So when students come in IGETC certified, right, that allows us to offer the exact same courses to everybody in the cohort instead of, oh, somebody has to fill this gap and somebody has to fill that gap, if that makes any sense. And the last thing I'll say is, unlike at UC Irvine, where there is support for faculty to teach on load, we don't yet have that support on our campus at UCR. We hope to build that support. And as Karamet has noted, right, some of these things are big asks for our department chairs and administrators, right? So in our case, the ask is even bigger because the average class size for many of the courses at UCR, like I'm teaching an introduction to political theory course right now, is 250 students, and that's small. Right. So it's a big ask to the campus to say, hey, can faculty go teach 25 students in prison instead of the 250 they would be teaching on campus? So UCR is not a resource rich campus, unfortunately, right? It's a pretty resource impacted campus. And so we're doing the best we can, right? So for now, we are paying faculty a stipend on overload to teach over and above their regular course load. But of course, eventually, we hope to transition to a model such as the one Karamet has described. So I'll leave it at that for now, unless anyone wants to add anything.
I just wanted to add two quick things. One, we actually are a lot like UCR. We have a lot of teachers who teach unloaded, and that is our dream model. But we do also have to pay out of pocket as well. And that's one of those costs that Karamet was talking about in the beginning. And Karamet always jokes about, and I love, the bureaucracies of prison and the UC system are often, very equal. So there are a lot of struggles with, even though we have teachers who want to teach with us, finding the capacity for them to be able to teach, not just, on load or whatever, but which quarter. And that's what I was going to speak to, because I think Raul was asking, like, what's our curriculum? And a lot of students and their families ask me is like, what is our set plan? And I'm like, well, you have to meet so many major requirements and make so many upper division units, but not every class will take sociology theory in fall of their first year and then methods in winter and this, because we do have this very fluid plan about who volunteers when and who's able and which departments can give us professors during which quarter. So we don't currently, and I'm not saying we never will, but we don't currently have a set curriculum. We have set requirements students have to meet for graduation, but unlike where campus students can go into an academic advisor and have their 2-year plan, like planned out on a piece of paper, our students don't have that, which does cause a little frustration. But I mean, I always try to encourage them, we're not going to let you not graduate. Like, don't trust us. We're going to make sure you get all the classes you need. Yeah, I just wanted to fill that in as well.
And we always say we want our students to have as similar as possible an experience as they would have on campus. And I have to say that's comparable to the campus experience, where you never know quite what's going to be offered and you have to figure out how to meet the requirements. So, in all its glory and all its challenges, there's obviously experiences we cannot provide to our incarcerated students, but that really is our goal. And Jen is really amazing at doing that with things she mentioned, like bringing in the Writing Center, bringing in counseling services, bringing in people like Ryan to do that work, to give students the kinds of resources beyond classes that they would have on campus, which we see as really important to the education experience.
Awesome. Thank you for answering that question. To piggyback off what Jen was saying, we do have a question by Kasaya that asks, on average, how many courses are incarcerated students taking in a semester or quarter system that are degree seeking?
So our programs are full-time. So our students are taking full-time at UC Irvine, and UC Riverside, I think, for us, is 4 courses a quarter. And so students are taking 4 courses. some have taken 5. We're piloting some independent studies, some other options for students. And then we're offering courses in summer also, which we hope the reinstatement of Pell will make increasingly feasible. So students have the option, especially if they want to do something like an English minor, to take up to 4 courses in the summer also. And students' fees are completely covered, right? We ask students to pay nothing out of pocket. We're covering their tuition with Blue and Gold and Pell, and we cover their books. Historically, we've done that with fundraising, but Pell should cover that increasingly as it becomes part of the infrastructure. So there's no cost to students. Of course, sometimes things happen, particularly in prison. We've had students who are out to court for a period of time, students who are ill and can't be physically in the classroom space. And so we work with students just like we would on campus if we need them to be part-time or to unenroll for a quarter because something else is going on. Obviously, in this kind of cohort model, that creates its own set of challenges, but we're working with those as they come, and just as students on campus have things that come up, we work with them. But because they're almost all qualifying for these state and federal aid options, we're covering their tuition that way, and there are no expenses to the students. That's part of the guarantee of these programs statewide.
Our next question is from Leah. Do you have a process for ensuring the classes and programs you offer are also in demand by the job market and inviting to those with a conviction history?
I'm happy for others to talk about this too. This is something we talk about a lot. It's something that's increasingly required by state and federal regulations also for this work. So it is, we argue that we are providing a kind of liberal arts education that gives people incredible skills, whatever the specific major. They're learning reading, they're learning critical thinking. We're very invested in bringing in resources. It's part of why it's so exciting to be partnering with Ryan, bringing in resources that really help them think about the next steps. And we are all absolutely thinking about ensuring that we're not offering degrees that they somehow would be precluded from. And in fact, the new federal regulations forbid that when they are released. And we do an immense amount of work with the students that we have had released to support them in that process. So we have a clinical law faculty member who helps with students if they have legal needs as they're coming out of prison and transitioning to campus. So it's something that we expect to continue to be doing, is seeing where students are and what challenges they're facing in reintegrating and continuing to learn from that and provide services. But I bet Jen has more to say too.
Yeah. So it's kind of 2 points. So we work with community members. We collaborate with them. We make sure that if our students are looking for employment, we can link them with other organizations that are accepting of people with criminal backgrounds. Most of our students are actually more eager to continue in their education than they ask for career referrals. Almost, I would say 80% of our first cohort who's graduating this year applied to the Cal State Dominguez Hills in prison master's program. And they all talk about going into a PhD program should they be released, or should one be offered in prison. That's probably like the #1 topic they always talk about is graduate school. But we always, so all of our students who are released, if they're currently still enrolled as an undergraduate, they receive like a warm hand. I wouldn't even call it a handoff. Like, we hold their hand through the entire transfer process to complete their degree on campus. We will find them employment, whether it's within one of our linked organizations like Underground Scholars with us, if possible, or with the transfer center, but anywhere on campus that's hiring, we will link them to. And like Kermit said, the UCs have banned the box, so students are able to apply in multiple departments. If they come out and they have already graduated, they're automatically UCI alumni, and the alumni department has wonderful resources as well. So we can always connect them with the resources there, the Career Center on campus. The Career Center will still support alumni as well in like finding jobs and helping them tailor resumes and things like that. So it's a work in progress, but it is something that's definitely in the front of our minds at all times to try to build these networks with different organizations. I love working with Kenya and Michelson because they're always eager to support incarcerated or formerly incarcerated students and to try to find ways to fill the gaps in all these different areas that people face. So I would say yes, but we haven't had to connect anyone necessarily directly yet who's come out, who's graduated, but looking forward to it.
Can I just chime in on this quick? This is actually a really great question. And thank you both, Kermit and Jen, for setting this up, because we have faced similar questions when we say we are offering a bachelor's degree in education. And sometimes there's a kind of a concern that arises because people hear education and they think, oh, teaching credential, right? K through 12. Oh, and aren't these students going to be precluded from working in education because of their records? And so we have to offer a kind of clarificatory spiel when this question comes up, both to, prison administrators who are like, wait, really, is this really going to work? And also to our community college partners and to the students themselves, right? So one of the clarifications that's really important to offer here is, like Kermit said, a degree in education, society, and human development is a liberal arts degree like any other. Right? It is not a teaching credential. It's a liberal arts degree, just like a liberal arts degree in sociology or, English or name any other discipline, right? So first of all, right, we're preparing students for a kind of a well-rounded education that sets them up for either employment after they graduate, or, as Jen rightly said, right, for admission to graduate school. But the thing I think we want to emphasize is that a degree in education is actually incredibly valuable for those who, let's say, don't go on to further education. It's incredibly valuable for things like nonprofit work, working with youth, working in social work, right? Any number of other sort of community-oriented forms of employment, right, that allow these students, just like Ryan was saying, to go back and serve communities, right? The very same system impacted communities that they came from. So we really see ourselves as contributing, we hope eventually, and of course we haven't actually launched our pilot cohort yet, right? So talk to me in a year. But we hope eventually, right, to be kind of creating two pipelines, if you will. One for, just as our partners have mentioned, right, further education, graduate school, people like Ryan, right, turning out scholars and professors, but also people who are going to go back and serve their own communities. So that's our hope and our vision.
Alrighty, well, that is the end of our Q&A. I just wanted to thank you all so much, especially to our panelists, for the exciting conversation. And would also like to extend our gratitude to everyone in attendance for your active participation and commitment to serving incarcerated and systems impacted students and communities. If you haven't had a chance to complete the survey, we will be dropping it in the chat once again, and we'll also post the recording of today's discussion on our YouTube channel, the Michelson 20mm Foundation, by tomorrow. You can stay engaged by signing up for our newsletter at 20mm.org to receive news and updates about our Smart Justice Initiative, as well as our other events and programs. Once again, I want to thank you all for taking the time to join us, and I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. And happy birthday to Ryan's daughter this weekend.
Can I just say something real quick, Kenya, if that's okay?
Of course.
I noticed there were a lot of unanswered questions that we didn't have time to get to. So I might suggest that if folks want to keep the conversation going, to please reach out to us. All of us are easily findable, searchable online. You can just, Google any of our names and find our emails. So I hope that's appropriate to say that anybody can reach out to us. And I'm sorry that there were so many questions we couldn't get to.
I typed
really
as fast
good
as I
ones.
could. They were amazing questions.
Yes.
Yeah, and in the survey, they can also ask anything else, and I can make any connections if requested.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thanks to Michelson for supporting this initiative to broaden awareness of this work.
Yes. Thank you, Kenya.
Thank you
Thank
so
you,
much,
everyone.
Kenya. Thank you, everyone.